Essential Beanie. What I'm demonstrating to you here is the two different colours which I'm going to knit together, which is one of the options with your beanie kit. You can knit the first two beanies in the two strands of the same colour, or you can do one of each like this. I am actually onto my third beanie in the kit, so I'm using the leftovers from the first two beanies, which were, one was grey and one was the pebble colour. Oh, sorry, one was stone, one was pebble. So I'm holding the two together and I'm going to do a long tail cast on, which is a nice loose cast on, which is important for the beanie to fit properly. So we are casting on 54 stitches. So to do that, I'm going to stretch the yarn right out across my wingspan. I know you can't really see that. So just stretch both arms out and you've got the full length of yarn, and then about another half again. So that is why it's called a long tail, because we end up with this long tail obviously, and that is what we're using to cast on our 54 stitches. So I'm holding my yarn here, and to get the right method we use a slingshot position. So I put my thumb under the two strands and my index finger under two, like that. Grab my circular needles and I'm going to just pop the right hand tip under those two and lift it up, and then move my fingers, holding that down, move my fingers into the slingshot position like that, and I am going under the left thumb with that right hand tip. So I'm going under both strands and then over, and I'm hooking, going over the top and hooking those two from my index finger, and then you'll see that that creates a gap there. So I am going to just pull them through that gap, and initially that creates two stitches. The first stitch was created when we held the two strands of yarn just across the needle. So now we have two, and we will repeat that process. So I've got my thumb and index finger in position, it's like a triangle really, under the two strands of yarn on each side, and then just flip them over into the slingshot position. The right hand tip goes under that left thumb, over the top, under the right thumb, and pull it. And don't pull it really tight, just nice and firm. If you've just finished the essential scarf, it's the same cast on, just a few more stitches. So we're going flipping into the slingshot position, under the strands on the thumb, over the top to the index, and up through, and under, over. And I'm going to repeat that 55 times. Now I know that we said we cast on 54 stitches for our beanie. The extra stitch is to create a nice finish when we are knitting in the round, when we join the round when we've cast on. So we actually drop that 55th stitch, so we end up with 54, but I'll show you that in a minute. I'll just carry on casting on. I have cast on 50, and so I'm just going to do 5 more. Remember the 55th one is our extra, or 5. And now I am ready to join in the round, which is exciting. So I've got my tail. I will trim that off to about there, and then pick up your left tip, and what you want to make sure is that all of these stitches, the bottoms of them there, are facing inwards. So I'm just going to turn those so that they're all facing inside, and therefore they're not twisted. And I've got my tail at the front there, and the working yarn, which is the yarn that's attached to the two different colours, at the back. And then I'm just going to push my stitches up towards the front of my left needle and the right. So we're going to do an invisible join in the round, which means we won't have any gaps in our work at the join. So I'm just going to slip that one off. So I'm taking my right needle, putting it up through the front there, slip that one off. Feels a bit tight, but it all works out. And then with my left tip, hold that in place, that one, I'm going to pick up the stitch behind. Remember, we're picking up 2 strands because we've double stranded our yarn for this beanie, and I'm going to lift it up over the top, keeping that front stitch on, and just drop it like so, and then you can tighten the 2 strands, and that is where we're going to start our work. I'm going to just grab a stitch marker and put that on there, so I just forgot to grab one, so I'll go and get one now. I've got my stitch marker, which is the little circle that's included in your kit. This is where we find out what the heck that is for. So take that stitch marker and slide it over the tip of the right hand needle, and that marks the beginning of the round. So when we finish our round, we know where we started from, and then when we reach that marker, we've finished one round. So now I'm ready to start. So for this beanie, the first round is a purl round. So there are 2 main stitches in knitting. One is purl and one is knit, and all of the work involved in knitting, lace work, colour work, anything, is all just a variation of the knit and purl stitch. So to do a pure purl stitch, I take my working yarn, remember we're holding 2 strands, bring it round to the front of my work. So under that right needle, around to the front, into the purl position, and then the right tip goes up into the first stitch, goes into the front and upwards. It's a little bit tight to start with. This will get much easier once we've finished this first round. So I've got my working yarn, I'm going to go around over the top of that right hand tip. I'm going to hook it round and underneath and bring it back to the front position. Don't worry about that stitch marker, it will get out of the way shortly. And then just take that right tip under and through to create your first purl stitch. I'll show you that again. And you can always tighten these ends later if you come back and you've got a bit of a gap there. So right hand tip goes into the front of the next stitch, into the front and up, crosses over the top of the left hand tip. I've got my working yarn ready in my right hand, and I wrap that over the top, around, under, pull that tip back through to hook the next stitch and off. Bring this a bit closer so you can see more clearly. Okay, I've got my working yarn ready on the right. The right hand tip goes under into the front of that next stitch, wrap the working yarn around and under that right hand needle, pull that right hand needle back and hook that next stitch and off. Simple as that. And then into the front again, wrap it round, slide it back and hook that stitch and off. Don't worry if it feels a bit gappy, that's only like that on your first round, and it all tightens up as we go. So then take that right tip into the front and up, wrap that yarn around. Remember, I'm knitting the 2 different colours together, and slide off. You don't need to do this really tightly. You want a firm tension but not too tight and not really loose either. Once you're more accomplished, your tension will be more even, and you'll feel it more and know how it feels and what feels right. So take that right needle up into the front of that stitch, wrap it round, under and off. So we're going to, remember this is the purl stitch, we're going to do that all the way around to our beginning of round marker. And you don't want to hold your needles too tight either, just keep your grip quite loose, and they should just all slide easily through your hands. Push your stitches up to the front every so often because it's easier to work with your stitches near the front of your needles. Carry on all the way around, and as you can see, I'm creating a purl bump, which is what that is called there, and that is our first round. I am coming to the last few stitches on my first purl round, so coming up to my marker, this is my last one, there we go, round 1 yarn done. Yay. You can tighten those at any time if you're worried about the gap being a bit loose. So now my next round is, for this beanie, is a knit round. So to move that beginning of round marker, we just slip it off the left one, place it on the right one, so it's now in position for when we come back round again. So for a knit round, I'm going to take the working yarn and move it to the back of my work under the right tip. So it's now in the knit position. And then my whole round now is knit stitches. So this time I'm going into the front and underneath, and the 2 tips cross over like that. My working yarn is at the back. I'm holding it in my right hand, wrap it round and over the top of that right hand tip, which is on the bottom, and hold it back here and slide the tip back and hook that yarn and slide the stitch off. Next one into the bottom, crossing over with the right tip at the bottom, working yarn is at the back, around the bottom needle, and we're pulling it back, sliding the right needle underneath and hooking that next new stitch and off. Into the next one, underneath, wrapping the yarn around the bottom tip, holding it in position, sliding our right tip back, hooking the new stitch and off. Into the stitch at the bottom, underneath, wrapping our working yarn around the bottom needle, holding it in position, sliding back and off. So we are going to do the whole round as a knit round, and so we're going to repeat that all the way back to our marker, and I will come back when I am nearly at the end. I am nearly at the end of my knit round, which is our second round. So I am just knitting the last 3 stitches up to that marker again, and then I'm going to slide that marker from the left tip over to the right tip, and we're ready for round 3, which is a purl round. So for the brim of this beanie, we are repeating those first 2 rounds, which was, the first one was a purl round, the second one a knit round. We're repeating those 2 another 5 times, which is another 10 rounds. And because we've already done 2, that will be 12 rounds altogether for the brim or the edge of our beanie. So continue on with those purl and knit rounds, and then we will come back and do the body of the beanie.